All right.
Nice.
So you'd kind of want it to be on like a specific topic, like r- we kind of talked about like
hmm
the motivation of education, or
I think we're just gonna focus on motivation in general. If you have anything in mind, I don't mind just playing around with the idea of motivation first and then start from there.
do you?
Unless if you have anything structured.
No, not at all. When you say motivation, do you mean motivation as in like kind of how it's commonly meant, or motivation in relation to something, like motivation in relation to? That's how I had understood it. It sounds like right now you're saying like motivation, like how to be motivated. But I thought it was like
Mhm.
motivation to learn something specifically. Like what's the motivation to study philosophy?
Oh, um, I thought something more generic because there are, like for instance, the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
are motivated um to a certain structure. Like if you don't have any food in your table, you're not gonna desire to go and earn a lot of money or whatever. Sorry, you're not gonna try to desire and try to become the best musician if you don't have any food in the table. So I think motivation is a complex phenomenon that we have, um, and there are theories out there that kind of backs up. So that's one theory is the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and the second one that I would share is the B.F. Skinner's um, theory of motivation, which is we are motivated by rewards and punishment. So if something is intrinsic to us and we know that we're going to get rewarded for that, we're going to pursue that uh, activity. Um, so yeah, that's what I thought about motivation. What did you thought about what we're going to be discussing today?
Well, okay, so like when you talk about those kind of motivations, those are things that are kind of scientifically um studied, measured phenomena. Of- I feel
Mhm,
like I feel like there's something that's not measurable but more present in a way, which is like a teleological kind of almost. It seems like there's a motivation for all living creatures, especially humans,
mhm,
philosophically, to um increase the world's complexity, increase the world's harmony, to make the world a more sophisticated, interesting place. Um, that's not something
mhm,
that's measured, but that seems to be what everybody's doing. Like if you look at the large scheme of humanity, that seems to be what we're doing. So like you talk about motivation to go away from things, motivation to go toward things. That's true on like a small level, but
mhm.
do you think that there's like a larger motivation to where like um if you're thinking about what motivation, maybe that's a useful thing to understand, because if you kind of align with that, if you don't think in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna you know kind of stay away from the bad things and kind of move towards kind of basic,
Mhm,
Maslow's hierarchy, fill these needs, fill
mhm,
these. If you think in terms instead of
mhm,
like, I'm going to try to mm, make this planet a better place, maybe that's a more aligned
mhm.
motivation.
Yeah. So I think that would be at the top of the hierarchy of needs, which is the self-actualization. If a person has met all of the structural needs, then the highest form, which is the one that needs to be fulfilled, which is the one that you've talked about, which is to make not just himself, but the people around him to make it easier for them. Um, and Jordan talks about this when he says, when you have a dream or you have a goal in life, um, your emotions direct you towards it. If you're directing, if you are getting a lot of positive emotions from the activity, that means that you're going towards the goal. And when you're experiencing negative emotion, that going backwards or away from the goal. But I don't think you can have that top of needs if you haven't fulfilled the the fundamentals.
because they're essentially all contingent on each other. Like the top ones are you have to stay alive in order to get to a certain point. You have to have like
I, I
ability
think
to
so.
move in society before you can self actualize.
Hmm. I think so. Yeah. Um, yeah. I do struggle with the it's because you mentioned about theology. I do struggle with the atheist view on how they want to progress the world. And I do think that there are atheists that do want to, but I think that kind of is in the realm of religion and theology, as you mentioned. Um, Being God or the kingdom of God, we're kind of desiring towards that. Um, you may say that, oh, I just want to be, help the community, but I think in a narrative that is kind of keeping up with the kingdom of God, um, which is, I think, it's a very top needs. I don't know if I have it. Um, up- do you think that right now in your present situation, do you feel that that's what you're doing right now and you've met all of the needs are required and that you're in a self-actualization process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a bit blending together because on one hand, like I think I'm doing two things simultaneously. Like one is self-actualization, like the top of the pyramid, and the other is like kind of mm, kind of hitting other marks to trying to do the same thing. Trying to do all the things kind of at the same time because I mean, you do I guess have to do that. But like some of the self-actualization goals are also like you know, survival goals,
Mhm,
like
mhm,
um how to self-actualize and then stay alive while doing it, like make a living with the things.
mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm,
when it comes to motivation, what do you think the motivation is for, for example, studying philosophy, or because you did a lot of that, you're an autodidact, you studied a lot of philosophy. Do you think that's something
mhm,
that that's maybe kind of distinct to you, or that's kind of something that everybody could do if they understood what you knew, they would kind of also want to get a philosophical grounds.
mhm. Um, I think I didn't intentionally said to myself that I'm going to read philosophy. Therefore, I start seeking philosophy. I think I have a genuine curiosity of the world and how reality plays itself out. Um, it started with religion. I think everything started from religion for me, um, such as what is the meaning of life. Um, and if you're going to study the Bible, let's say, you're going to go through a lot of narratives. And not only that, you're going to go through a lot of history. And through that history, you're going to meet the Roman civilization, which kind of leads you to Augustine. And if you know Augustine, you would know also the other founding fathers, which are the top founding fathers, which goes with Aquinas, um, and then the Revolution, which is Martin Luther. So it kind of starts with that. But then that's the top of it, the umbrella of it. You would also try to read about Caesar, because if you're trying to understand about civilization of the Roman civilization, you need to understand Caesar. You need to understand Augustus, um, the empire, the successful empire before, and Nero, and why he hated Christians. So a lot of this is kind of are linked together, and it started from that question: what is the meaning of life? Um, and then you go on with the 15th century and the Enlightenment. It started with Francis Bacon, and then you understand about, um, next to that it will be John Locke about empiricism. Why do we, you know, why how do we ground our truth? Is it through objective, what we see, what we feel, versus to how we think? Because Descartes also struggled with the idea, which is famous with the radical skepticism. How do I know? This is Descartes. How do I know whether a an evil god is trying to pollute my brain? So how can I disprove that? So it all started with the meaning of life, and then you go on with a lot of links, hyperlinks, until you kind of are just you're just dissatisfied with a lot of questions. Because if you ask, if you go with Descartes and why does he do this, you know, it's because he is, he's genuinely worried that an evil god is trying to tempt him. Um, so if you find that his book Meditations is inadequate, then you're gonna go with another philosophy. And then if that philosophy is still dissatisfies, you're gonna go with another philosophy. So I mean, I'm not really that good in terms of philosophy, but I'm just a reader, really. I just enjoy, mm, battling ideas with each other, and because a lot of the things that we think, and even if you're gonna go to the quad, a lot of the questions that are being asked there are already answered by the philosophers. So for me, if I'm going to keep myself asking, if I, you know, inquisitively ask people of that question instead of reading the people who have thought about it in the first place, then I think it just, you're kind of limiting yourself with
That
that.
was something James Orr said in his lecture. I at first didn't like it when he said it. He said something like, mm, "Philosophy isn't something that's advancing. It's something which is stable, and it's kind of like, you
Hmm.
know, it's
Hmm.
staying the same." Um, and I didn't like that. But then as I started to understand philosophy, I started to like see kind of people would like present arguments as if it was something new. And I would know that like date. I'd be like, oh no, this is the
Hmm.
first time that was thought of. And I think that's like really, really important because like you're saying, like if you're going to kind
Hmm.
of wrestle with these subjects, might as well understand the history first so you don't like put all this energy into
Hmm.
building something that's already been built before. How
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
philosophers
Hmm.
have you read? I have two questions. I'm very curious. How many philosophers have you read? And also, what do you find you ground out in most? What's your favorite philosopher?
Mm. I don't know how many philosophers I've read. Because for instance, if I say Plato, um, I've read 3 books about on Plato, so I think that would kind of limit me with a one idea, whereas Plato is already complex. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? He doesn't have a one idea. He has multiple ideas, and sometimes he contradicts himself. Like for instance, um, and this is a topic that I'm, as you know, I'm homosexual, um, and hence why, again, because of that curiosity, I thought, what does Plato thought about it? So the very first books, I forgot just which books. I think he sees love for another man as something that is beauty. That definition of beauty is from The Primacy of Beauty by John Vervaeke. It's not just aesthetics. So I'm not sure if you watched it, of
Yeah,
course,
I did. Yeah.
but there's a entire the entire definition of
Wait, but
beauty.
how are you linking that
Um,
definition
but then
to to Plato's definition? How are you linking Vervaeke's definition of beauty
so
to
he
Plato's?
he approves homosexuality. So he approves of homosexuality because he thinks that you know, love itself is associated with beauty. So a man loving another man because of that desire is actually good in itself. But at the very last, I'm not sure if this is in Symposium. He saw that people are, men are just lasting with one another, and that kind of destroys the meaning of of or the purpose of why a person should love another person. So he kind of back, how would I say this? Like kind of had a opposite view with homosexuality. So if I say Plato, it's kind of it has many ideas, um, but sometimes contradict with each other. But I'd say I don't know how many philosophers and books I've read. Um, but my favorite one is I also don't know to be honest. It's a hard question to be honest because I think a lot of them has got their advantages. Um, oh, okay. So my favorite one would probably be pragmatism.
Oh,
And it's the founder. The founder is William James,
mhm.
but I disagree that he was the one who thought it. I think it's Benjamin Franklin.
Really?
Um, I'm a great admirer of Franklin. I do
I didn't
because
even
I
know.
think Franklin saw that.
I didn't know he was
Huh?
a philosopher. I didn't even know he was like a philosopher.
Like Benjamin, he's not a philosopher. No, no, sorry. People don't think that he's a philosopher, but I think he is. Because he has this idea that a lot of the topics which involves poetry and philosophy kind of just is a waste of time. So he kind of has an idea that work itself is beneficial to a person, not just material um, gain that you will get, but also kind of gives you your entire body as that routine. Um, I don't know. So in the primacy of beauty, Vervaeke said that there are two types of cognition. One is top down, which is your mind thinks it, and then your body kind of
Yeah, Descartes.
follows it. And then there's bottom up, right? So there's bottom up, whereas your body acts it out first, and then you learn. I think that's what Benjamin Franklin discovered. That stop wasting your time having these ideas in your head and just start doing things and start exploring things. And with that, you actually learn. You're becoming a bit more practical in life, and that's a lot of value that you're gonna get through it. But I also like empiricism, um, because I think, especially in our world right now, because of postmodernism, everything is about subjective, and I think empiricism is being put on the side, which I think is a mistake because objectively, um, there's a lot of truths in what we see um, in our world that people are not aware of.
Even with Benjamin Franklin's idea of pragmatism, basically just the bottom up approach, couldn't you then smuggle back in
Mhm,
philosophy by saying, yeah, the ultimate goal is to just do things, is to just engage in the world and do things, but philosophy is needed to get there
mhm,
sometimes because sometimes people mm, get like really confused about what to do, or
mhm,
the society they're in is one where they can't do the things that
mhm,
they think they want to be doing, or you know
mhm,
you can see what I'm saying, like how philosophy could like come back in even if you hold as the highest value a pragmatist understanding that you should just be just doing things, like that's the ultimate goal.
mhm. I'd say yes, but I also would have a tiny bit of disagreement to that because the danger with pragmatism is it becomes relative. Like for instance, if I'm a Nazi soldier and I wanna, push the narrative of narcissism, because that itself brings value to me. Um, it kind of creates this the value system that I create is kind of relative to me rather than relative to someone else. Does that make sense? It's not for
Yeah, yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
yeah, so that's the danger of it.
but you said pragmatism is like your kind of top favorite philosophy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
empiricism. So you'd ground out pragmatism
yeah.
in empiricism so that you don't end up in that kind of rel- relativistic cycle.
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. Um, but I think it's difficult because I'm also a Christian. Um, so I do understand that there's a absolute morality in the world. I mean, we're going tangent now with so we're going to morality rather than we're going to motivation. But I think it is somewhat related to each other. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm also a Christian, so I understand that there are moralities that is fundamental to us and we should not ignore. It's good that we have, you know, we pursue activities that provides value to us, but I think there's an extent on which we can go towards that.
Is philosophy or theology top for you?
What do you mean by that? Sorry, is philosophy my theology top?
Oh, is philosophy or theology primary? Like, do you
Mm.
stabilize your
Ah,
theology by philosophy?
right. So I think your question is that my main objective in life to understand philosophy and theology? Is that what I mean?
Oh no, 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 no. I guess a simpler way to say it is just like, do you um do you
Mm.
look to the philosophers or the theologists primarily because you're a Christian?
Ah,
So like, is
yeah,
theology kind of above philosophy for you?
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. Oh well, I think I sorry, I'm gonna take my words. I don't think there's a difference between the two. I do think that God, you mentioned this in your post. You think that God and logic are one. And I do believe that God, logic, truth, and value, the highest value, is one. So if you say in pragmatism, what is the highest value that we need to seek? I think it's God. You know, so as much as I say that I'm a pragmatist, or I want to become a pragmatist, I think I still try to answer the question, what is the highest value that I should be getting?
Have you found
And I
any
think it's simply God.
have you
Mm.
found anything convincing in the like a priori arguments, like Leibniz kind of argument that you can start with a priori reasoning and you can build a metaphysics from that, sort of like starting without presuppositions and based off just the epistemological mm,
Mm.
base epistemological framework. You can like build up
Mhm.
truths, like you can maybe know something about God, because if you like a simple example is like, if you know logic is true, then maybe you can infer things about God. You can infer, well, he doesn't have opposites within him. But some Christians would
Mhm.
basically say God is above logic, even.
Mhm. So I'll answer the first question. I'm with the a priori. So that's what Descartes tried to do.
Yep.
Basically Descartes is struggling. How can I trust my thoughts? Um, and he came up with a conclusion, I think, therefore I am. That meaning to say, because I doubt, that doubt cannot be being influenced by an evil force because I'm actually doubting. It doesn't make sense that I'm doubting and being influenced by the evil God is influencing my doubt. That cannot happen. The fact that I'm doubting means I'm actually existing. So that's an a priori. Um, and a lot of philosophers would start from that. Um, and then there's an argument whether whatever I see is an a priori. In John Locke's, there's primary objectives and there's secondary objectives. So a primary objective if is I see in the background that you're um, behind you there's a window, so there's a shape in it. So that's an a priori. You cannot change it. You cannot change a shape. You cannot, as C.S. Lewis said, you cannot um you cannot square a circle.
Hmm.
Shape is primary. You cannot change that. Whereas color, if you shine a different light, it changes. If you turn off the lights, it changes. So yeah, so you can start from there, um, and so on and so forth, and logic as well with mathematics. I mean, you cannot really go out um, without mathematics. I think it's physics. A lot of the universe is grounded by math. Um, Newton, Einstein grounded their theory out of a priori mathematics. So yeah, I think everybody should be grounding it from an a priori. Yes. Um, since I'm not that creative, I can't think of anything at the moment that I have that I did to myself. But yeah, those are examples that I think that are, you know, good examples that I think that are grounded by a priori. Yes.
Well, okay. What about this as uh, an a priori kind of logical foundation? So I was just reading Bertrand Russell, and he said he didn't find this convincing, and I haven't figured out why that is. But there's an argument like, is it better to have nothing or something? Uh, and it, I think that the conclusion, yeah, I guess maybe you can't really decide that one. That's why he said it's unconvincing to say that it's better to have something than nothing. But if you do choose something over nothing, then I think it would follow logically that it's better to have more
Hmm.
something. And so then if it's better to have more of something, multiplicity then is a value. Harmony is a value because it's the um it's the stacking of some things on top of each other. It's the ability to kind of have more
Hmm.
things in a smaller space. And so therefore you could conclude
Hmm.
kind of a morality about God, because if this is like a logical truth that there's like this a logical definition of the good, then you could
Hmm.
like work backwards from that
Hmm.
that God wouldn't be an evil demon. Now, it's like to Descartes though, that's
Hmm.
you have to kind of accept that logic is real. But like I don't know, that's like
Hmm.
yeah.
But but I do have a trouble with that thought experiment because you can accumulate negative things, right? It's not
Mhm.
just positive things that you accumulate. So the question there is, what is your a priori? What is the a priori there?
Well, just multiplicity. Because like negative things, I think we've talked about this a bit before. Like negative things
Hmm.
um can they can be defined as just an absence of harmony. So, murder,
Hmm.
it's like it's something extra, but it's less. You're taking away something, or for example, abuse. Abuse would be it would be taking
Mm-hmm.
away something because you're in sort of restricting the human capacity. Like you have an animal maybe, and then you have like a dog, and you're just like
Mm-hmm.
locking it up and like not letting it go out and experience life. You say, well, that's maybe you could say that, well, that's more um because you're doing something that not everybody does with dogs. So there's two different situations where you have one person does this to the dog, that's nice to the dog, and another person does this. So you get, well, it's more, but it's less because then the dog is um sort of less expressing, has less room to
Mm-hmm.
express. It's also damaging morality. Morality is the basis of more. So you can like kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though, but like I've already I've talked to
Mm-hmm.
you about this, so I don't want to like, kind of bang on about it, but
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I do struggle with the idea with multiplicity as being an a priori, because I think it has to be defined further.
mhm.
Um, I think with your example though, I think it is, although not exactly, but I think it's partly part of utilitarianism by John Stuart Mill. Whereas so his entire thesis is, if it's giving you pleasure, that's that's the right motivation. If you're experiencing more pain, that's that's the wrong motivation. It's not entirely adding up, but it's more emotional, or it's more of a feeling. Um, but yeah, I just thought to add that up. But I don't think that that can be associated with logic in a priori. Um,
Oh, what can't?
because a priori is something that is a multiplicity.
But that could be associated with logic. Like, cause you can build multiplicity up um from the ground up using pure logic because like that's I don't know, have you seen like how arithmetic is built on set theory where they just have like a set, they have an empty set, and then they have an empty set in an empty set, and then that's
Hmm.
multiplicity is building it up from like sort of
Yeah.
core axioms of like, well, the empty set has these logical properties, and then you define more logic to get,
Hmm.
well, the definition of two is like
Yeah.
the thing after one, kind of like,
Hmm.
so then,
Yeah. 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 So that's another philosophy branch called infinitism. So infinitism is, you ground your theory from an a priori. Um, I can't think of an example right now. Um, I'm not really good at physics, but I think so. Imagine, I can't think of an example right now. Forgive me, but imagine if you have a theory, you ground it from Newton's law of gravity. So with your theory, and if it's proven a law, you're gonna another scientist would have another theory, and it's gonna ground it from your theory. So you kind of have that infinite, you know, additional set of theories that is, um, like you said, is adds up. Um, when you have that, you know, body of knowledge that is grounded from Newton's law of gravity. Another one that I want to share is, I forgot the name of that branch of philosophy. So there's infinitism, and then there's I forgot the other one. It's basically two branch of different subjects, kind of agrees with one another. Let's say if you have the theory of evolution, and if you ground that with another branch of subject that is considered fundamental, and they agree to one another, you have that. I think it's complexity. I forgot the term. Forgive me. So if you have that two branches and they agree to one another, then you may say that that may be, both of them are an a priori, or something that is grounded from truth, because they agree with one another. Um,
Like two disparate branches that
but I think,
agree with each other, like two.
yeah,
Okay.
just forgot the name. I think, yeah, I forgot the name. Complexism. It starts with C. Coherentism, I think. Coherentism, I think. Um, but there's a danger to that, because the farther you go away from the a priori, it doesn't. I don't think it becomes an a priori itself. I
Well,
think it becomes a knowledge,
if
but it's not. It's not, because an a priori is something that is self-evident, something that is considered to be,
mhm,
sacred truths. So if I
undeniable.
say, um, yeah, undeniable. So it's a theory of evolution is, um, an a priori. I think there's a danger there, right? So I mean, it's grounded from empiricism. It's grounded from fossils, which is true. But if you say, in a blanketed term, say theory of evolution is true, I think there's a danger, because I struggle to digest all of, and sorry, I struggle to conceptualize the entire theory of evolution as truth.
Yeah, well, evolution
Whereas I understand,
evolution is
while
a
I understand that fossils, if I see it, studied, and it's been carbon dated, is true. But if you, um, just have a blanketed term that the theory of evolution is true, I think I struggle to classify that as a priori.
yeah, well, uh you can build out from an a priori and have something which is as true as the a priori, but you have to do it
Mhm,
incredibly rigorously, just phenomenally rigorously. So
mhm,
evolution doesn't have that at all. It's a theory, because a theorem is a mathematical thing which is just an absolute truth of, like, it's undeniable, uncontestable. That's a theorem, and a theory
yeah,
is
mhm,
something which maybe is quite plausible, almost maybe undeniable, but
mhm,
almost undeniable, not absolutely undeniable. But I mean,
mm,
there's no way,
mhm,
like,
mhm,
then with the a priori, you're restricted to what you can build out. You can't like um kind of start with where you want to go and then reason from there. You kind of have to start with the very basis of axioms. Like, there's some things
mm,
I would say are like a priori truths, which are like, just, I think maybe one of the most base truths would just be the idea of something in memory. Like, if you have a thing, i- i- is that thing
mhm,
sort of like
mhm,
not its opposite? Like, it's a the existence, like something
mhm,
exists. I think is like an a
mhm,
priori understanding. Um,
mm. But with memory, you also have to be careful with that, because, David Hume, um, because he was one of the pillars of empiricism, said that even your memory shouldn't be trusted. Like, you
yeah.
have to ground that with
Oh,
empirical
absolutely. I
truths.
mean, and that's what Descartes saying with his evil demons, that he could be tricked in these certain ways.
Mm,
I didn't, yeah, I
yeah.
meant memory, and like, as a computer programmer, I think about memory in terms of like, I'm God and I'm giving the simulation memory. Like, like,
Mm, mhm,
if God is the computer programmer and he's making a program, memory would be
mhm,
like data, like something which
mhm,
exists. That's what I meant. I didn't mean it
mm.
as like a human memory.
Right, 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 right. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's go back to motivation.
Mhm.
So I think, we explored a little bit of philosophy, and the reason why I was motivated to go with philosophy is because I was genuinely not anymore. I'm trying to limit it now. Because I think, as you said, and Ecclesiastes said this, that there's nothing new under the sun. Um, I do think that is a bit of a spiral, and um, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't study it. But I think once you understand it and you understand the arguments, I think you can move on and start doing your own thing. Um, yeah, so that's why I was motivated to it, because I was seriously seriously curious on the meaning of life, and why do we exist? Why is my attraction different? I think that's the main. No, I wouldn't say that's the most fundamental question I had, but I think that's the one that tortured me, um, especially as a Christian. So yeah, I started seeing, like, I would even read hours, and that's not an exaggeration, because I was just genuinely curious. I want to understand life. So yeah, it's really difficult to study philosophy. Like, if you say, the Critic of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant, which I haven't finished, but it's about 900 pages book, and is a lot of it is it's just difficult to read. Like, it's just torture to read that book. Um,
Well, yeah, this is kind
but
of something
but
I was thinking about before, which
mhm,
is like I was thinking about like why I love philosophy. It's incredibly interesting to me. Plato, I think in the Republic, I think this is Plato, talks about kind of a utopian
mhm,
society that he was envisioning, and one of the things he talks about is like
mhm,
how there's philosophers and in the philosophers sort of need to be supported by people and stuff. And I think this is under. It seemed like he had this kind of understanding that in order to do philosophy, it's kind of like a leisure activity. Like you have to have your basic needs met
mhm,
before you can do philosophy. And
mhm,
I have this feeling with philosophy where it's like many things. I would love to do it all the time, but
mhm,
I I think if I, for example, sit down and I read uh, an actual philosopher's writing, like read Nietzsche himself, I'm like, I would love to do that, but
mhm,
like going so deep in on one philosophy, then I feel like I'm not being as productive as if I was like blanket, because that's what I've been doing now is
mhm,
like, you know, books which like go through the entire history of philosophy, like give you this like summary, like even though it's completely interpreted through somebody's framework,
mhm,
I feel then like I'm I'm going faster than if I were to,
mhm, mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're right about the interpretation of Plato. So Plato called them the philosopher kings.
Mhm.
Is very in favor of aristocracy, wherein there's a bunch of thinkers at the top, and the people are working, and supporting them, because those thinkers would be the one who's gonna, um, propel the society forward by have creating, something that is beneficial to society. Um, Contrary to that, Aristotle is this is their main arguments with each. There's the main disagreement with each other, because Aristotle is it's kind of like a liberal. Like, he believes that the power shouldn't be to the state alone, but to the individual, um, to the individuals. Um, every person has the capacity to become a philosopher king, and it's not just a particular people. So he's more of a democratic person. He wants a decentralized power, whereas Plato wants a centralized. Um, Regarding with your, struggle, with having this having a lot of desires, but understand that it's not gonna, bring food in the table. This is again a philosophy, although not it's not really classified as philosophy, but it is, um, how would I say, a concept that was created by Adam Smith, which is the wealth of nation, specialization, because you don't have time to study all of the books that was written before, so you have to specialize yourself, and you need to rely on another person who studied philosophy to understand it for you. So you have this, um, one area that you can focus on, that you can expand in yourself, and that in itself is contributing to the society. So it's more efficient rather than being a general person and understand all of it, where you could just focus on one thing and you have a um um you you share it with other people and then they share theirs. So Adam Smith is not just about wealth, um, capitalism, but is I think his main concept as well is through specialization of people. It's just way more efficient.
What is your feeling with the philosophical studies you've done? Is there some things you studied where you like studied an actual philosopher, like historical information that you would learn at an academic setting, but if you look back, you'd be like, ah, I could have skipped that. Or also, what is your thought process like, and is it influenced by kind of philosophical ideas? How much of philosophy do you think bleeds into the way you make decisions? Do you think that you have quite a um um a, like
Mhm.
upgrade from what you studied?
Um, I'd say so. I'd say so. Let's say the most um, I'd say the most deceptive, most evil philosophy that you could probably read is Marx, right? I think it's very self-evident that we just hate Marx. I wouldn't, you know, people think that he's not a philosopher. I think I mean, he studied philosophy. Did he study philosophy? Yeah, he studied philosophy. Um, or did he study law? I think he studied philosophy. Um, so, centralized power, communism, socialism. What is the benefit that in my life? I think I see more of people's behavior through socialism. I see more of a Cain-like, Cain and Abel, Cain-like personality of people. I see victim signalers clearer than when I have not read it. So even with that book, I've learned, and my observation of people has just been just enhanced, and I understand the arguments. If a random socialism come up to me and started arguing and debating about why do I support capitalism, I have I have arsenal and weapons to attack him,
Hmm.
um, because I've actually read the book,
Hmm.
whereas most of them have not even read their book. First line of argument that I would say, do you un- do you actually know that Marx, the very first chapter says private property is illegal, is wrong, is morally wrong, and most of those socialists wouldn't even know that, but it's the very first chapter of the book. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So I think it
Hmm.
just makes my arguments a bit more convincing.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, like to
and
add on to that though, like I think
Mhm.
you can't even actually um beat somebody in an argument, beat them in a way where they feel that they've been taken down,
Mhm.
unless you completely
Mhm.
understand their argument. You understand exactly their their point of view.
Mhm.
So I mean
Yeah,
that's I agree. Like
yeah.
literally understanding things that you normally would go like, I think that's insane, but like you know, if you don't engage in it, then like
Mhm.
you don't know it. You think it's crazy, but you don't know it. So
Yeah, yeah. So this is my favorite topic is Christianity. An atheist would come up to me and say, "Why do you believe in God? Have you read, the arguments of atheism?" I said, "Well, Dawkins said that Jesus is not historical truth according to Asian historians. It's in his book. Jesus, it's I forgot the exact wording, but I think Dawkins said that it was argued by his a person who specializes in is his history. Historians. Um, Historians have argued whether Jesus actually existed, which is false. I think all of the Asian historians believe that Jesus existed. Like
mhm.
none of them said that he didn't exist. So, and again, those atheists don't know what they're talking about. So, similarly, I've got Christians as well who would say, you know, things that I think that I disagree because I've actually read the Bible twice. Um, Whereas most Christians have not read the Bible even once. Um, Say, oh, God is not darkness. God is not um, doesn't destroy. I would put up a verse. What do you think about this? I'm not sure if it's Isaiah chapter, where God said, um, I light and I'm dark. I create and I destroy. So how would you interpret that? That's actually God's talking. So yeah, it's you have to you need to have both sides um of the arguments to make your or sword or weapon, sharpened. Um, going back to our main question, is it beneficial to me? It probably isn't, because at the end of the day, I'm not earning money. It's not. I mean, it's enriching my mind, yes, but it's not making me. I mean, you're right. I think materialism is not really shouldn't be sought. But you know what I mean. It's not
Mhm.
giving me that value. It's not making my brothers a better person of themselves. I'm
Well,
not helping the community. I'm just arguing with people.
you could think of like a thought experiment. I think there's an interesting thought experiment that would maybe start to unpack that, which is like if you in isolation like learn a bunch of philosophy and then you die, like what was the point of that? But if you learn a
Mhm,
bunch of philosophy and then you engage in those higher order ideas and you sort of this is something I've been thinking about recently that I find really interesting. I think
mhm,
that like when you see a hero in a movie, you you kind of want to be that hero.
mhm,
You emulate that
mhm,
the hero concepts. I think that people
mhm,
when they listen to music, they want to be music because what do people do when they see a
mhm,
hero? They enact what the hero does. What do people do when they listen to music? They
mhm,
try to like act out music. They like dance. I think people want to actually
mhm,
be music.
mhm,
They want to be as close to it as they possibly can, or even become it in some kind of abstract sense. Um,
mhm,
I don't remember why I was talking about that, but I mean,
mhm. Are you saying that um, because you have passion in music, that you wanna create a music that would inspire people to act in a in the hero's journey narrative?
oh no, this is what I was gonna say. It like the motivation to like why is it useful? So I I
Mm,
think
mhm,
music hits people on an abstract level where like it's literally like if you think about your brain like a neural network, like a computer neural
mhm,
network,
mhm,
there's like layers. I'm not sure if you know how a neural network works, but there's like layers of depth where at each different layer, the different
mhm,
levels of abstraction. Um, so maybe one
mhm,
of them has base reality, takes a picture, all the pixels go in, and then the base reality goes into like an abstraction here, where these are like kind of very abstract principles, where like maybe it's like
mhm,
shape recognition. Like from the pixels, now they can recognize like there's a corner. They can recognize corners and lines maybe, and then
mhm,
here they recognize like oh boxes and triangles, and then here it's like oh like basic shapes like cars and things like
mhm,
that. And then you go all the way to abstraction to like now we're
mhm,
recognizing yeah, faces and things like this. Um,
mhm,
it seems like music hits people on a very, very deep level of abstraction where the concepts literally are meaningful. That you absorb, you listen to the music, you understand it, and then that like affects your psychology. Like your psychology on a very deep level is like um
mhm,
I'm gonna go down start mode. Is like picking up on those concepts. So when you learn philosophy, that's what I feel like is happening is like you're absorbing these
mhm,
concepts which you don't immediately understand. You don't see exactly how they
mhm,
fit, maybe, but like it's like organizing life for you in a
mhm.
way. I just gotta put my phone down serve mode.
Right, right. Yeah. I think I
Okay.
know what you mean. I think you're trying to say that once I've studied a certain philosophical argument, it goes to my subconscious, and at some point in my life, that subconscious would act out based on from what I learned before, because it hits with something fundamental in me.
Definitely.
Yeah. 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 Um. There are times when even though I understand, the value of pragmatism and empiricism, I cannot deny that there are truths with relativism. Um, for instance, I what is my favorite food? Let's say I like chocolate. Um, who are you to say that chocolate is not something that is good, right? So that is relative because I am in favor personally that I like chocolates. It's for me, chocolate is good. Although you can make an argument of utilitarianism that at some point that's going to be does not that pleasure is going to put me into harm. But for me, there's still a grounding that we have our own independent desires and preferences. There are people who are not addicted to chocolates. There are people who are addicted to alcohol instead of chocolates. So how are we gonna um how are we gonna ground that? We can't really say that is empiricism. I think that is relative. There's a genetical study that there are people who are prone to um, becoming alcoholics in the future. If there's a genetic code that is present to your um, to your code, um, whereas someone might be susceptible to chocolates instead of to video games instead of to um to alcohol. So I think there's value and understand. So there's a lot of psychology courses in Pearson Academy, and even political affiliation is can be reduced to personality traits, right? So they're saying that if you're high in conscientious and sorry, high in openness, you're more likely to be liberal. So it's not just I suppose I don't know. Is that relative? Yeah, sorry, I'm wrong. That's not really relative. I think that's grounded in objectivity, isn't it? Like if you have this personality trait, and therefore you're this. But I think there's a case to be made for relativism. It's very relativist. Um, but yeah, it's just going back to the same to the topic. Um, whenever I see truths, for instance, I see a criminal, um, and I see a society that is crushed, or a society that is just lax with their order or with their laws. That's Rousseauian argument. That's a Thomas Hobbes argument that society is actually what disciplines a person, and people are morally bad. And the opposite of that is Rousseau, which is people are morally good, and the society just makes it bad. So whenever I see something like that, those philosophical arguments just pops in my head. That's just instantly just comes to me. So yeah, so I understand it more better. I think it just has more reference and backing whenever I see that in real life, and actually it is beneficial. Um, I know people to avoid, and I know people who I wanna hang out around with. Um, I think you can actually predict a person by how they act in the world. You know that someone is a hedonist. You cannot predict their next movements. So yeah, I suppose there's a benefits in it, but I think I'm moving away from it because there's a limitation if you purely think, sorry, purely understand philosophy without actions. Again, this is going back to Benjamin Franklin. You need to have some actions. You need to have some, contribution to the society.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. where do you think you're going right now? Do you have a like a plan future? Have you laid it out, carefully planned it?
Well, it's like
Um,
that thing with music where the structure of music is like there's a motif. The song starts with something,
mhm,
and then as that song goes along, it's able
mhm,
to add in maybe another idea, and then um
mhm,
it starts like a Bach piece. It starts layering complexity. It starts with the in a fugue, like da 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 da, da, and then the next part da 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 da, da and then the fugue just like
mhm,
keeps going where it's adding this complexity and layering it on. And this
mhm,
pattern in music of uh n- it, continuing to go while harmoniously,
mhm,
I feel like it's like
mhm,
having as many parts working sometimes in this way. So my
mhm,
plan keeps changing because I was computer programming for a bit, and then I was
mhm,
computer programming some software um that I won't describe, but it's very interesting to
mhm,
me. But then I'm noticing that, well, if I just change what I'm doing in my programming just a little bit so that it incorporates music and philosophy as well, then I'm harmonizing with the other things I'm doing
mhm,
um
mhm,
better. And then there's the harmony with like the rest of the world that I'm wanting to
mhm,
resonate with, where it's like, how can I do the most things I possibly can that most resonate out into the world as much as possible, which is why I think these conversations are
mhm,
interesting, because it seems like there's a way potentially to start taking the information and
mhm,
mm, like doing something with it that makes it easier for other people to, you know,
mhm,
I don't there's like something that happens with like a networking connection with people where it's like, well, if one person's learning something, they can learn that, but then if somebody else is learning with it and then like harmonizing with them, they can like sort it, they can both like learn faster.
mhm,
So, um,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, I think what you're getting at is I'm not sure if it is. I think it's beauty
yeah,
because if you're talking about music, I think you have that flow state as Vervaeke has um, shared to us. It's about you have these objective rules that you have in music, but you can also apply with that subjective, your own kind of version of it. And every time you, sorry, that's not flow state, but I'm just combining the two. Flow state is something that you're you see that something is beautiful, and then you are discovering something more as you compose it.
hmm,
So you kind of have this in between of practicing something, but also, sorry, yeah, practicing it as in you're enjoying it, but you also see some tiny flaws that you want to correct to make it even better. I'm not sure if I defined it correctly, but that's what I understood what flow state is.
hmm,
So I think you are in the realm of arts. If you're gonna pursue with music, um, and like I said, I think with if you're gonna incorporate philosophy to that, I don't know whether you're maybe overcomplicating this or overanalyzing. I think truth itself, beauty itself, is something that is sacred, that is very complex in itself. So if you want to add on to other um, known philosophy in the world and you can't put it there, I don't know what that would look like. But I mean, I'd be interested in it. But I think it's, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying, but I think it might be a bit
Oh,
complicated or too
okay.
outside,
Wait, so yeah, you're
a bit
thinking
entropic.
when I say add on to it, I don't necessarily mean add on to the philosophy, like actual philosophy, though maybe I
Hmm.
would do that. But what I meant when I
Hmm.
said that was uh like add on to the rate at which like improve on it because
Hmm.
things in their raw
Hmm.
form, a philosopher writes a book, they publish it, y-
Hmm.
it might be phenomenally difficult to understand. And then there's ways of
Hmm.
like taking the information and then reorganizing it, maybe making it more
Hmm.
musical in its structure to where it
Hmm.
then for the next person is way easier to understand.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what I
Hmm.
mean by I don't know, maybe it seemed like I was saying that.
Yeah, no, no. Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. I get it. I get it. So I think you're making it. You're trying to deliver an abstract concept and simplify it for the people. Is that the right way of terming it?
um well, like,
It's not necessarily mean that you are simplifying your work, but I think who's that writer? Um, it escaped my mind. But there's a writer that I know that a lot of his words are just very simplistic. He's just trying to reach out. That's not what I meant. Sorry. What I meant is you are taking something that is complicated and you want people to understand that without simplifying your work. So you wanna deliver beauty to the world without, because I don't know, I think
mhm,
beauty music right now is a bit meh. It's very superficial, as primacy of beauty have said. Um, so I think there's there's room for real content makers there to start making changes. Um, if that's what your passion really.
mhm.
Um,
Well, one example
mhm.
is like understanding music. So people go to learn music and m- m- they learn a song and they memorize each note that they're supposed to press. I press this note, then I press this note, then I press this note,
Mhm.
I press note. They learn the entire song. They play
Yeah.
it. They go through all their grades.
Mhm.
They're playing grade 10 pieces, and they understand nothing about music.
Yeah.
And then, you look at that and you go,
Right. Right.
I mean, that was cool, but if they had understood it, they would have learned faster because it's like it's like if if somebody told you
Mm.
like to repeat words that you didn't know the language of. They were like, say "goo blah blah blah," and then you're like, well, how do I remember that? Like it's difficult, but if you
Mm.
understand the syntax of it, it's much easier.
Mm.
And so I think that that's what's happening a lot in like philosophy as well. Is there's like a
Mm.
syntax that isn't clear. Like you
Mm.
you study things. eh,
Mm.
It with especially with technology, it seems like information can be tremendously compressed. I saw somebody posted on the quad this image of like they were
Mm.
visualizing different ideas of different people. It's like there's got to be ways of compressing. I know there are. I say got to be. It's certain. There's ways of compressing
Mm.
information where where you can this is another thing. It's not just like compressing the information stable in a stable state. Like, oh, I've compressed it, now I can package it and send it. It's dynamically working with the individuals where the thing needs to be like responsive to
mm,
the information package you've created needs to be responsive
mm,
to the individual to where this is what I mean. Like, so like the old technology is you have to have a book. You want to learn something, you go through the book. Now we have like
mm,
searches. You can like use large language models. You can just search exactly what you want. And
mm,
and so yeah, I'm just expounding on what
mm.
I'm interested in. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. To some extent, Immanuel Kant tried to do that. So, transcendent idealism, which is his main thesis, is an actually combination of all ideas prior to him.
Oh
So you have
wow.
the phenomena and the noumena, and I think that's a very really good illustration of realism. So you're not denying realism, which is something that is currently you see right now. For instance, I can see my mouse here. If I leave my room and I've got a web camera, the mouse should still be here. So the mouse is not a concept in my head. Because if you say that the mouse is concept to my head, that would be idealism. Realism is you see it here. Like it's independent of my conscious thought. Um, and then you also have skepticism there, and you have moral truths. So yeah, so Kant combine all of that together into this transcendent idealism. um, you have the phenomena and you have the noumena. Noumena, that's something that you cannot, nobody can reach it, whereas phenomena is something that we take parts of it from the noumena. So I think it's the most difficult but also most valid, I would say. I'm not sure what's the updates now right now with philosophy, but I think a lot of philosophers would agree that Kant is probably the best philosopher, arguably, or should I say, important philosopher that should not miss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so that's one example that you're combining all of those ideas together into one concept.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
that is what philosophers ha like kind of
Mm,
the big steps in philosophy are oftentimes when philosophers just take all their previous predecessors and they
mhm,
combine it all into one package. I think that's kind of what happened with Socrates, where there was many philosophers before him, and then he
mhm,
just kind of like took everything and
mhm.
or at least the triad of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle.
Yeah. Mhm. I think with Socrates is because there we have very few knowledge about him. Like we don't even know what he thinks because a lot of his we know him from Plato, right? From his description of Plato. So a lot of it is evidence from there. There's another writer actually. I forgot the name from James Orr's um, lecture that talks about Socrates. But anyway, it's mostly from Plato, right? So and I think with Socrates, it's just you cannot conclude everything. I think his conclusion is there's no conclusion in wisdom. So I don't think that's a combination. Maybe it is. I think he's just being non-judgmental with other ideas and accept it as a genuine knowledge rather than um you know saying that Marxism has no value. I think Socrates would disagree with that and say there is value. It should not be applied in the system, or maybe at some point if you have really gap like evident gap of the rich and the poor, then maybe you would consider Marxism. So I don't know. Yeah, Socrates is an interesting person that you pointed to. Um, but yeah.
is what Vervaeke doing. I had this thought because I was at first when I was taking Vervaeke's lectures, I was not understanding because he would like describe something, um, and I would be like, yeah, I know
Mhm,
that. Like I never described it myself, but I already kind of knew that. I get the
mhm,
feeling almost like Vervaeke is going back to what Socrates did, where he would just go and he would ask people to define something. Like,
mhm,
well, can you just
mhm,
define bravery? And
mhm,
I think Vervaeke, in
mhm,
some sense, is going back and saying, like, I don't think we've actually defined these things yet. Like, let's try to define them. Like, what
mhm,
is
mhm.
beauty? And then a lot of the work he's doing,
Yeah.
it's like he's not concluding anything. He's just trying to define it, which I find very interesting. I don't know if you agree.
Mhm, mhm. I'd say yes and no. I do. I think what Vervaeke is trying to bring back is dialogos. From the writings of Plato, it's we're having a conversation, and that actually produces something rather than me just reading or thinking on my thoughts. And I think we've lost that in our well, it's definitely lost in university because there's a lot of cancel cancel culture. So I think he's just trying to bring that back. My trouble with Vervaeke is and he's done it. He's done this often. I can't think of an example right now, and he would put up two similar words and say, "You see the difference between these words." So I yeah I know I'm not saying that there isn't any difference in those words, but I think we there's a case that we probably have over specified and detailed the word where that word those words can be interchangeable to one another. um Whereas it would say no, they shouldn't be interchangeable to one another. Like for instance, intelligence is different from rationalism is different from wisdom. I understand his scores on that, and I agree with his distinction between them. But you can say that a person who's rational is also intelligent. Like if you don't know any of those terms, if you say that a teacher is rational um, or intelligent, I think miss you can use them interchangeably. With wisdom, it's different. I think wisdom is solely from the Bible. I think it's a you have to be moral to be wise. I think, um, but I think if you overcomplicate yourself, I think you kind of lose track on you kind of over specified yourself a little bit without actually grounding yourself with something more fundamental than semantics, semantic meaning.
Okay, so
If that makes
I'll go, yeah,
sense.
yeah, I'll go from the
So there's a
beginning though, because for of like what you said.
yeah.
So, and then I'll go into that. So originally, what you said was he was about dialogos, but
Mm,
the dialogos that Socrates was participating in was
mhm, mhm,
deeply connected, and I think one of the reasons why it was deeply connected is because he wasn't talking, in some sense, about definitions. He wasn't making prepositions and then arguing them. A lot of the important work he did was in
mhm,
just showing how we don't have clear definitions for these things. And so, I mean,
mhm,
this is kind of why I'm saying
mhm. I
it
understand what you
seems
mean.
like
Yeah.
he's returning to that
Mhm,
place of um, like before
mhm,
we can even have the conversation, like, can we even define the words? Like, and then as you go into like just trying to define the words, you're like, well, I'll just
mhm,
define it, and you just go into it. And
mhm,
it's a rabbit hole. And so then this gets to like the semantic thing you're
mhm.
talking about.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, okay. I take my words back. I think you're right. I think you're 100% correct there. One very vivid example to me that has never left my head is the general when Socrates asked him, oh, since he's a general, he might have know the definition of courage. So he asked the general, and the general defined courage as you go into the battle, being brave, being despite of the consequences, you're gonna go with the battle. But you can also say that definition with gambling. and say, despite all the consequences, despite all whatever can happen, you're gonna go and gamble. So, the general was left astounded, like, that's not what I mean, but it is what he was trying to imply. So, yeah, it's true. It's you can use courage in that sense, but it's because Greeks, if you're gonna read history books about Greeks, is courage is their top virtue. Sorry, courage is one of their top virtues. One of their top virtues. I think it's it's the same line as wisdom for them. So they're really careful in defining it. So yeah, with that example, you cannot just say courage is something you can just, despite all the consequences, you're gonna go. That's not the definition of courage at all. Then because you can apply it to gambling. So yeah, yeah, you're right in that. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, he's John Vervaeke for some reason, right? So yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I take my words back. I think there is definitely we have to define it. But okay, so I'm gonna use another philosopher, Wittgenstein. So
Wait, can you say that name again?
his philosophy is about Wittgenstein.
Okay.
He's a German. He's actually a student of Bertrand Russell.
Oh,
He
really?
came to Yeah, he was a student, Bertrand Russell. He came to Cambridge and studied under Bertrand, and he was trying to get attention of Bertrand Russell. And I think Russell was trying to dismiss him until finally he just gave up. Fine, going with us. Um, so his main thesis is about private language, and his concept is, we can easily get lost with language. My definition of one thing that is different from your definition. So if we're gonna talk with the same um, with the same discussion, we have to agree on which definition should we agree on. That's why it's called private language. Um, so I think, and his entire conclusion was, we shouldn't really focus on language itself because we can act on something like non-verbal and we would understand each other,
Hmm.
right? Which is true. Which is true. We can make some sign language, and or whatever action I'm doing, you can actually interpret that without me saying a word or without you saying a word. Um, and there's a case to be made for that, but I think again, this is, we're gonna go again with the same clash. Are we gonna go with Vervaeke, where we have to be careful with our definition of word, or are we gonna go with Wittgenstein, wherein we should, you know, n- not completely dismiss it, but we need to understand that there's limitations with words. So, but yeah, no, interesting
Yeah, it's very
thoughts.
interesting now how Vervaeke does that with words. You described it a bit different than I was thinking about it. This is, I guess, an example of a definitional thing where the definition of what he's doing, you could think about definition as like a definition of a concept or
Mm-hmm.
something. The definition of what he's doing, I would say, is different.
Mm-hmm.
I would say what he's doing, because it seemed like what you were saying, what he was doing was he was trying to. I guess I saw this differently, but they're both are kind of true. But I'll just say what I feel like the reason why he's doing that is I think because this. So he's trying to define these things more completely, define them in a way they haven't
Mm-hmm.
been defined before. And he's coming up with concepts
Mm-hmm.
where he has like a new concept, a concept which, is specifically defined for that specific kind of situation. And I think like, because he makes words, I don't think he wants to use a different word
Mm-hmm.
because he wants to maintain
Mm-hmm.
that concept and sort of build an axiomatic
Mm-hmm.
framework outward so that he like builds his axioms
Mm-hmm.
and then is able
Mm-hmm.
to use them because this is a feature of what humans are the best at is that philosophy really is the ability to define axioms and then like work out for them. Like we define time. Time's not like a real
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like time is, according to relativity, it's real, but like from a visual perspective, like it's just things move around. Like what do you mean by
Mm-hmm.
time? But we build this
Yeah,
time, and
yeah,
then we like, and then we can go to higher order concepts because we are building, you know, things out. And so Vervaeke just seems to do
mm,
that a lot more, where he wants to,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And you're right. I think it's really important because even, especially right now with the postmodern claim that there's no unifying narrative, that you can define things by yourself. I would have a definition, entire definition from your definition, and we should all be correct. I think, yeah, I definitely would agree that what Vervaeke is doing is correct. Um, yeah, I don't know where I'm gonna go from that line of thought. But you mentioned before about Vervaeke. It's kind of a change of um at um feelings towards Vervaeke, because you said before that you struggle to find, you kind of don't find any value to his work. Remember our conversation before?
hmm
But now you kind of backtrack a little bit of that,
yeah, yeah.
and you now actually realize it. Right, 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 right. It's
So,
interesting. It's
so
interesting.
yeah, like my first perception was like, it felt like this. So when I would watch Vervaeke lectures, it felt like there would be um some concept or something he was working on, and then he would disassemble it in a way, and I would agree with the way he's disassembling it. I'd be like, that's correct, but I wouldn't understand why. It's like you can disassemble something correctly, but what's the purpose of
Mm,
it? And
mm, mm,
then mm, I I guess it was because I watched this video where Vervaeke was sitting around in a group. There was three other people with him, and one person would have they would try to define something. The next person would actively
mhm,
listen to them. The other person would
mhm,
observe the interaction. The other person would observe the body language version of the interaction, and then they would go around, and then the roles would switch, and then they would switch, and it would go like this. Um, and
mm,
what I noticed was that it, it seems like his approach is to be like reaching, like to almost be like attempting to augment your tool set to give you more reach. So
mm,
before, when I was like, he's
mm.
disassembling these things, I agree with it. I agree with what he's saying, but I'm not gonna. What am I gonna use that for? I see
Yeah.
now he was disassembling it, and then like once you disassemble it and you have all these axioms built out, it's like then, oh, okay, now from those axioms you have like a perception that's different that you can work with.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Agree. Um, one, I think this is mostly attributed to his work, is the difference of knowing. Because in philosophy, well, when I studied philosophy, a short course that I studied, there are only two types of knowing that from the epistemology course. There's perspectival knowing, and then
Yeah.
there's procedural knowing. So procedural knowing is you perform a skill and you don't even have to think that. You kind of acknowledge that you know. If you ride a bicycle, um, that the fact that you are able to perform it is procedural knowing, right? You don't learn bicycle by reading it theoretically. You have to perform it. And whereas perspectival knowing is something that you have to understand, for you to know. And then there's participatory knowing, wherein you become one with the bicycle. Like you don't. It's it's somewhat similar to procedural knowing, but it's different. If you focus on bicycle itself, um, you wouldn't appreciate the understanding of what was the name, participatory knowing. But if you're a jazz player or a musician, you would know that if you're in that flow state, you're in a you're in that you kind of become one with music. And only people who are advanced, if you've trained long enough, your those people can, or those are the only people that can stand the meaning of participatory once you reach that mastery, because you're not anymore, you're not anymore going through the instructions on how to perform it, right? So you are procedurally doing it, but also change something whilst doing something. So you're all one with music basically.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's phenomenal. It's good. It's so apt. It's good. Mm,
Very well explained. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
That was something. Oh, sorry, you were gonna say something.
no, no, no. Go. Mm,
Like that is a good example of what I originally viewed as like I understand that, but you know, what are you gonna do with that? Because
yeah.
it's something I think people intuitively know. They intuitively know that there's a difference between
Mm,
sort of
mm,
book knowledge, then doing the thing, and then becoming one
mm,
with the thing. They know that difference. And so
yeah.
when I heard that, I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, that's how it is. And then what am I gonna do with that information? But now
yeah.
there's this language where you can interface with it. And I mean, right now, this exact moment, I can't think of something to do with that. But
Mm,
yeah, it's like
mm.
yeah.
Yeah. You can be theoretical about that. But you can also apply that in your day-to-day life. If you're just gonna go on and finish courses with Peter's Academy, that's not gonna benefit you. So you have to apply those knowledge that you learned from Peter's Academy for you to know, to fully understand it.
Right.
Aristotle said in Nicomachean Ethics, I'm not sure it's in chapter 3. He said, "Read the book by actions." Um, and I think the most true thing that most people should know, because especially in the quad, I'm not criticizing someone specific. Um, there are people who ask, what is the purpose of all of this, courses if we're not going to get a job? I think, it's knowledge. Knowledge should be something that you should be applying to yourself right now. There has to be changes in your life. Um, you need knowledge should have an end to the means. Is that right? So you need something. Knowledge is not an end. You need to apply it to something for you to benefit from it. If it's on your head, it's in your subconscious that nobody, your brain's not going to benefit. You need to take actions of it. Um, Hence why I'm still in Peterson Academy, even though I'm quite discouraged with the quad. And going back to the motivation, I get a lot of data, scientific articles from Peterson Academy. That is, people are not aware of this. Most of them are restricted in the public because it's from a university. Peterson Academy are kind of sharing it to us. So yeah, we have to apply what we learn to kind of optimize and maximize what we learn.
Yeah, that is uh w- why I think conversations like this should happen because it is kind of
Mhm.
that thing exactly. Um, Now to add on
Mm,
to that, I think that it's. I'm also curious what you're upset with what you're not happy with the quad about, but
mm,
this is kind of more interesting to me at this exact moment. Um, I think that it shouldn't just be like there's the information, there's the school side of it where you're like learning, and then there's maybe a conversational
mhm,
side of it. But even I think even if it's a conversational side of it, you haven't went yet to I forget what which one it was called, the participatory or perspective. I don't know, but like the one where like you're integrated with it, um, until like
mm,
you're moving a direction with it, like you're having a conversation for a purpose. Um,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
what do you think about this? Like conversations there's like we're in an era right now of the podcast where people sit down and they just like they just talk about things, they just share information and it's interesting, but
Mm. Mhm.
I would way rather like listen to two people in university talk about a project they're working on. I feel like I would just it'd be way more interesting. There was like there's been some um where they like, you know, have these conversations where you feel like they're actually kind of building out something, working on something. Um
Mhm. Mhm.
but also I am interested, like what is it with the quad that you're not happy with?
Am I upset about? Um, well, nothing really specific. I probably would say just, I think just based on my personality, I'm quite a descriptive person. So every time a question that is being asked there, it's like, mate, it's in the courses,
Right.
watch it. And I think it's just my personality, my disposition, just just a tiny bit of annoyance that I feel whenever somebody asks this question. I shouldn't be annoyed when it's a free for all um text for everyone to enjoy, and you can have that conversation with the random people, and people can actually help you. But I think it's just, again, I think it's just my own personality. Um, there's a lot of um, yeah, I think I'm just being judgmental. I think I'm just being judgmental. So with regards with, I do think that there's limitation to what they do. I do believe that you should. Maybe I'm just assuming things that they don't apply it. Maybe they do. Um, but I think they should expand a little bit. For instance, I've recently I made a post about the ketone diet, about how I find that my weights are decreasing, my performance in the gym are decreasing, is decreasing, were decreasing, sorry. Um, and then a lot of them are advocate for the courses where you know you need to find other sources from that, mate. You don't narrow down your focus on what you have. You need to be an independent thinker, as Aristotle said. You don't rely your thoughts on a specific group, a specific professor. You need to be having bunch of ideas. You have a question, you have bunch of ideas, and clash it all together in which one works. And I cannot do that without performing it. I won't be able to identify that my strength workout is decreasing without actually applying the keto diet and going
Mm.
to the gym and notice that do you know what I'm saying? Like, you need um that actions in you to see whether, oh, is it actually working, is it not? If you're gonna read the comments there, you'd be surprised that a lot of, I know, I'm happy actually. There are people who says, oh, actually, I've noticed this myself. You're one of those people.
Yeah.
Um, Matt, Matthew Brenner has actually, made this post 9 months ago. He's another Canadian guy. Um, and there are people who actually, supported my thoughts. But there's still a number of people who doesn't, which is fair enough. But I think, again, it's limitation. Um, People should be not relying on a certain information from a certain group of people, or a specific professor. You need to verify those.
Okay, so like
That's what I
that
mean.
that exactly right there though. So that's something where potentially the students could build some infrastructure so that starts happening more. So for example,
Mhm.
maybe there's a topic and then some students
Mhm.
research stuff. They go to various places and they find academic papers, but they also kind of show their work. They like maybe do it in on a video or
Mhm.
something, like maybe with other people in a conversation or something like that. But they're researching something, but they're also showing that like how it's like they're going someplace, but they're also leaving a trail so that it can be followed. Because
Mhm.
like right now at this exact
Mhm.
moment, I would say this is exactly the kind of conversation which is optimal. It's because we're in this moment,
mm,
we're talking about information, all the stuff, um, psychology,
mm,
theology, stuff like that. But also, we're
yeah,
talking about like what we can actually do and potentially
mm,
implement those structures because that's like actual movement.
yeah,
That's like it's like
mm,
Joe Rogan said that the reason he thinks he's such a good podcaster is because he's curious. And I think that one step above curious is like
yeah,
movement, going someplace, like being open, curious, because that's what
mm,
you got to
mm,
be
mm,
to actually move places. You got to be aware, but
yeah,
to actually be going some places.
mm. No, 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 100%. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I say that without hatred whenever I see them. Again, it's just my disposition. I just get easily annoyed. Um, but yeah, no, curiosity is number one. Like if you have a question in your heads and you know you should take it seriously. And shouldn't oh, Jordan Peterson says this, therefore it's true. No, if you have a genuine curious question, you would take Jordan's argument, you would take Dawkins' argument, you would take um you know which person disagrees with Jordan, whoever people disagrees with Jordan, you would take their arguments and slam them together. Talk to someone like you. I'm gonna we're talking to each other, and we're gonna discuss some things. um yeah, I think again, there's limitation if you just focus on one side. Um, you not only just need to be curious, not just need to discuss it. You also need to, as you said, there's movement. Those, and you would come up with a conclusion um, that that is something that is credible to you. And to some extent, this is from David Hume's, because Hume is very strict with his filtering. So even with testimonies, he would say, if you have a Israel versus Gaza conversation with someone, you would say, Gaza, find it out yourself. That's how you would know the truth. You cannot just rely on Douglas Murray. You cannot just rely on the BBC. Go to Gaza, and that's where your knowledge is. So he's very strict with that. So and same thing with knowledge. If something isn't right, you say ketones actually is beneficial for strength training, as a lot of people have argued to me. Empirically, it's not true. It's not working for me. I've done the stimulants. I was on caloric surplus. It's not increasing my weight. It's not giving me the performance that I have. There is something wrong, and you shouldn't force on it all just because these people from professors from Peterson Cabinet says so, therefore it's correct. It's me that's the problem. No. Again, revalidate your thoughts, revalidate your performance.
Hmm.
There's something that is not keeping up. Your empiricism is telling you something that is contrary to what the professors are saying. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, like uh,
Mhm,
Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson do all
mhm.
the Lion Diet, and I did the Lion Diet, and when I did the
Long
Lion
story, yeah.
Diet,
Yeah.
I I felt amazing, like really amazing. And if I was just walking around
Mhm,
doing normal things, just kind of like walking to a
mhm,
place, maybe then sitting, then maybe standing and walking. If I was doing those things, I would feel completely fine in the
mhm,
Lion Diet. But I was uh,
mhm,
surprised when I went to do construction where it's like lifting heavy rafters, climbing up ladders, all this stuff,
mhm,
where I felt tremendously fatigued, like really, really tired, like
mhm.
all day doing heavy stuff where
Yeah.
normally I can do heavy stuff all day. And I never ever felt that fatigued. And it was like
Mhm,
I was on the Lion Diet for mm, months, just strict Lion Diet, only beef, salt,
mhm,
potassium, water. That's it.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
and so like
Mhm,
I wonder if it's possible that the information from people doing the Lion Diet largely comes from people who don't have to do like tremendously physical
Mhm.
work. I think they work out as well,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
but
mhm, mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. So so here's the research that I found. Your muscle stores glucose. Your muscle stores 300 to 500 grams glucose. So when your muscles perform some intense activity, it has some reserves that immediately consumes it. The problem with, I think lion diet would work, but with keto diet, however, you don't store ketones. Ketones just circulate in your body. And if you have consumed all of your ketones from your energy that you've expended, it would take time for your body to break down fats. Because I think the digestion is about 8 hours and the breakdown is about more hours. I forgot how the numbers. But with carbs, it's 2 hours digestion, and that's already been it can be used by your brain, by your muscles, by your organs. So with high, and this is the conclusion of the articles that I've read, with high performance activities, carbohydrates is definitely beneficial. It not only stores energy, it also um, glucose itself repairs tissue faster. It's like It's like a minim. It's like a minor protein. Protein is like the best for tissue healing, but glucose also helps with tissue healing. So you have all of those benefits, or you have all of those benefits that is being missed, that is lacking if you just focus on keto diet. If you perform in the gym, but if you're an endurance marathon, keto diet is beneficial, is even required or recommended, not required, recommended for
Really?
people. Yeah. So
So it's weight that's the problem.
That's what I've read.
Wow.
It's high intensity. So if you're
Mm.
gonna sprint, you need high intensity. You need glucose right away. Um,
Oh, that's really
and if you run
interesting.
out of ketones, like there's yeah, so it's like your body will try to find the most immediate energy sources, um, which is glucose. So if you don't have that, and you do not have any fats reserved in you right now, your body would take a while for you. So that's why you get easily fatigued from high performance activity if you're not on
That
if you don't
100
have any glucose in
that
your body.
100% lines up with my experience because I had this feeling when I was
Yeah,
at work, which is like I'm good. Like I can do this all day, but I'm just not going to be like explosive. And yeah, like
yeah,
that's the thing is though I'm used to being explosive. Maybe it's not healthy though. Like you could make a case
yeah.
that like really you're more in tune and that it's healthier not to be working so hard. Maybe you can make a case for that.
Mm,
But yeah, that's so what do you
yeah.
do now? What's your diet now?
So I'm mixing it with carbohydrates. So I think my limit is I'm trialing with 120 carbohydrates per day. Um, if my performance is still low, I would up it up to 160 carbohydrates. At the moment, I'm 120 carbohydrates per day and see from there. Because before it was only 20 grams of carbs per day that I was doing. And I can feel I, I was just not performing in the gym. I was just
Hmm.
not. No. Um, yeah. So it's going well so far. I think I managed to get back the weight that I've lost. Um, it's good. I think it could work, but it's just much more energy. It's just much more stressful, I would say. You can do it. A person can do it definitely, but it's just more stressful. Um, Additionally, the new course that came out, Roy Baumeister, I don't know how to pronounce it. Um, he said that on his from his paper, the ego depletion theory, um, focus, our brain, the ability of our brain to focus is you need glucose for that. Your brain demands glucose for focus. Um, However, there's no studies that says that ketones cannot provide that, focus power or ability to focus. Um, but I think empirically, I have noticed that my focus have reduced when I was in keto diet. I don't know. I don't have any studies to back up. It's just my own personal. Maybe it's just now psychology. I'm just, I'm just now being biased. But from my experience, I find that my focus is way less when I was on keto diet. My brain fogginess has disappeared, and I'm able to perform mild to moderate activities. But if you're gonna ask me to write, start writing my book or think about philosophy, it's just not gonna happen. I find I really struggle um
Hmm.
without carbs and protein.
I didn't have the same experience. I was programming all the time.
Okay, right.
I think that like kind of the most
Okay,
productive I've been was on the lion diet. So,
okay. So lion diet is different because lion diet, where protein that can be converted to glucose, whereas fats cannot. With ketones, you don't convert ketones to glucose.
now
Ketones itself,
this is something that
so
kind of
ketones is a byproduct of fats.
this is something that doesn't make sense to me. When people say keto diet, that means no carbs. The only thing that's no carbs is meat, eggs, not even eggs, like just meat. That's the only thing that's no carbs.
So keto diet is fat diet. So you have more dietary fat in your diet, because the byproducts of fats is ketones, and ketones itself is energy. It's fuel. It's a secondary fuel for your brain and for your other organs. Um, with lion diet is protein. You have a higher proportion of protein compared, or sorry, lion diet is, I think, is strictly meat, which is majoritarily is majorly protein and fats.
Hmm.
But I think primarily it's protein rather than fats. So you have a higher percentage of protein versus the fats without carbohydrates. So there's a difference between the two. If you say ketones, you definitely have a higher percentage of fats, dietary fats, whereas lion diet is, I think, would be protein because you're eating meat.
So,
So a keto diet is something like you eat olives, you eat nuts more than meat.
okay, interesting. So that's actually completely different because that's not a no carb diet at all then.
You can have a strict keto diet wherein you have no carbs at all. Um, you can have a standard keto diet. I think it's about 20% carbohydrates and 60% fat, 60 to 75% fat,
Okay.
and then 20% protein. So there's like varieties of it. I was on a strict keto diet.
Okay, but then
So
strict keto diet,
virtually,
the only strict keto diet is really a lion diet because absolutely everything else has carbs. Like a purely strict
no,
diet, like
not necessarily, no.
literally everything. Like even eggs have carbs, just a little bit. Like literally everything has just a little bit of carbs. Pepper has a little bit
Really?
of carbs. Literally everything.
Um, hmm. I don't know the numerical value, but I don't think, should I check it right now?
Yeah, yeah. Look up any food and it's
Um,
carbs. It's
right. Yo, interesting.
so like even when
Oh, I blocked Google.
the
Sorry, I blocked Google.
you blocked
I'll
Google.
search it later when I. Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
when
but
when
yeah,
it's
so
unblocked, then I can search it. Yeah.
when you search it, you have to search the individual food and then how many carbs. Because if you search like what are keto allowed things, they have a whole list of things. But then you look at the actual carb
Mm,
content, and they all have some carbs except for beef and chicken,
mhm, mhm.
maybe fish.
Okay,
I don't know.
fine. I think when I mean by strict keto diet, I don't think it means virtually zero carbs. Okay, I take back what I said. It just means very, very low in carbs. I mean like 5% carbs.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
I don't know how I don't know how much carbs are in nuts, in almond nuts. I honestly don't think there are any.
Oh,
Maybe 3 grams
there's
per two.
some, but so like
Yeah.
then it's a question of like, well, how many carbs exactly can you have and still be in ketosis? Because I think it's very common for people to do keto diets and think they're in ketosis, but actually not being ketosis because they actually have some amount of carbs that are kicking them out of ketosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm, I actually don't know. I haven't really searched much about ketosis itself. The only reason why I went on a keto diet is, again, this goes back to our main question, which is motivation. The only reason why I was on a keto diet is because of what I read about the hormones. I think your hormones are much more optimized when you have a higher proportion of monounsaturated fat, specifically testosterone. Hence why I was on a keto diet. Um, yeah, and yeah, so my carbohydrate was only banana, and I mix it with my shake, and it's one
Hmm.
banana per day. So that's about 20 grams. So it's not entirely zero, strict diet, but despite that, I was experiencing low performance in the gym.
Hmm.
Yeah. So but yeah. So regarding with the lion diet, so the lion diet, protein you can convert. So if you don't have any carbohydrates in your system, your body converts protein to glucose. So that's something that is different. So I think you can have a keto diet with with a same proportion of, higher proportion of protein, and it can work in the gym. But for me, I just find it a waste if you're gonna eat 300 grams of protein. I think that's a wasted. I'm not vegan, but I also, I'm not gonna kill
Hmm.
more chickens for that. I just find that it's just a
Yeah,
waste of utilization of energy. So I just went with, I'm gonna go back to carbs.
makes sense. It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to eat a lot of meat
Wait.
to do lion. What?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought you were vegan for some reason. I don't know.
No.
Then you mentioned that you were in the line diets or not.
I mean, I've
But
tried.
no.
I've done kind of. Yeah, I think I've probably done vegan diet before, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, interestingly, I think I can go still in a keto diet. No, 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 ketosis. If I just fast, which you have recommended to me before. I struggle
Definitely.
with fasting really, but I think that's an alternative for me if I want to reduce the insulin spikes in my system. Just go with fasting.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's like right now I'm fasting. Like I haven't had food in, you know,
Wow.
longer than normal. But not like I don't think I went over a day, but longer than normal. Um
Yeah, yeah. No, it's
what
amazing. Very impressive.
um
Mm.
how long do you want to go on the call?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think we're gonna go in tangent, so I think we can stop here, unless if you wanna
I think
continue.
this is a good place to stop.
Y- Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's good. Is this the first?
This is the
Are you gonna
second.
cut this? You're gonna cut
Uh
it.
oh, I'll stop the recording right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.